Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. Welcome to the 5th of 21 lessons, where we'll explore the wrong way to meditate. Together, let us relaxingly recite. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but sadly, not in the fun, tingly way. This includes humanity, even those who fancy themselves teachers of meditation. According to some, Gautama Buddha, who is also known as Shakyamuni, was rather flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, lucid, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. Thus, many people are enthusiastic to emulate his example. Many people, that is, other than his foolish cousin Devadatta, who was rather rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Gautama's path could be described by many terms, including yin or spiritual matriarchy. And Devadatta's as Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy. Statistically, the majority of meditation teachers unwittingly follow in the footsteps of Shakyamuni's foolish cousin. Therefore, it could come as little surprise that these individuals implore their students to actively focus and analyze. They might even use fancy labels like analysis, contemplation, vipassana, samatha, concentration, focus, or even mindfulness. Even though that final term is often woefully misapplied. The only way to practice active focus, active analysis, or both is to rely upon discrete neural pathways such as those found in the medial or dorsolateral regions of our prefrontal cortex. Overuse of such regions could exhaust our prefrontal cortex, triggering our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. This is clearly antithetical to the peace and love that could make life so fulfilling. Far better it is to practice mindfulness and meditation in reliance upon the two branches of our autonomic nervous system. For doing so could calm the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, as well as stimulate the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus. With consistency, it could even cause our choices, utterances, and deeds to habitually flow from the right or effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. This is why the Buddha taught mindfulness and meditation. Having completed our opening lesson, we could now shift gears. It is Luke Skywalker Friday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After about 30 seconds of housekeeping, this is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus, to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this evening's live stream, let's rely on the following visual aids to meditate, practice mindfulness and meditation. And of course, both the teaching text and the visual aids are available for free download as PDFs that have been formatted to be read horizontally on your smartphone. Every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access the middle bit of our sympathetic nervous system. I should say the middle bit of our spinal cord, which is known as our sympathetic nervous system. This has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque, including sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. By the way, good evening, Nate. The easiest way to do all of this is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this each time we feel our diaphragm pull in and down as gently we inhale. Every time we exhale, we are wired to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord, kind of like bookends on a shelf. This is known as our parasympathetic nervous system, and has evolved to support both our physical relaxation and mental release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. All complex life forms have evolved to think symbolically. It should therefore come as little surprise that every human language implements figures of speech. As we relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand. The easiest way to experience this is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb is each time we feel our diaphragm pull up and reset as passively we exhale. Remember, this is not the path of forcing our central nervous system to notice and relax. It is already wired to do that. We are simply playing with these words to help us to cooperate passively. The easiest way to help keep track of our first collection of 144 inhalations is for us to rest the first knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. So Nate typed, one moment, I guess that would be button 8. Yes, Nate typed, if you cannot be in the moment, focus on our breath until he becomes effortless Satori. Okay, so I would respectfully disagree. For a very long time, confused teachers have told people to be in the moment. But remember, we're already wired to notice. And we're wired to notice memories. We're wired to notice fantasies. We're wired to notice sensory input. We're wired to notice emotion. We're wired to notice thoughts. That is called casting a wide net. Whenever our brain does, as long as we're already wired to notice, there's no way we can resist it by trying to focus. We can resist it by trying to push things away. But whenever we're vulnerable to whatever happens, whether it's a memory or a fantasy or a perception or a cognition or an intention or an imagination, that's mindfulness. Every moment is Satori. Satori is simply enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply mastering the Eightfold Path. And the key to effortlessly and rapidly mastering the Eightfold Path is, drum roll please, wrong button. Okay. So this is the entirety of the Eightfold Path. It's when we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, that is enlightenment. Simply by cooperating with our body's natural tendencies to notice and relax in harmony with our inhalation. We cannot help but notice change and begin to care and experience kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, kind commerce, and for that kindness to help us to experience the effortless effort of our choices, utterances, and deeds flowing from a centered spontaneity. As a child on a skateboard might stand with their right leg on the board and with their left leg push on the asphalt, the contemplative version of doing that is simply cooperating with the awareness and release latent in every inhalation and exhalation. The Buddha's quick path is simply noticing and relaxing and allowing everything else to take care of itself. Vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Welcome to the imperfect perfection of effortless effort. Whoops, wrong button. Let's try that again. And continue. Thank you very much, Nate. To you I give a Yoda high five. We could use the tip of our right thumb to count the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our right hand to keep track of the next 4 inhalations. If you were prone to arthritis, you might wish to adjust your legs every 15 minutes or so. Those who practice concentration don't like moving. Those who practice mindfulness have no problem with moving. Their experience being less rigid, being more flexible, being more resilient. We could use the tip of our left thumb to similarly touch the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our left hand to count the 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. Please bear with me, Nate. I will get to you in about 4 minutes. Okay, let's answer a question. All right, so Nate wrote, so does that come on its own, the Eightfold Path? Yes, it does. Here's the great irony. And to answer that, I'm going to access the visual aids. Here's the delicious irony. We are already wired to notice. We are already wired to let go. Where does free will come into the play? Glad you asked. We can either actively fight against our own autonomic nervous system, or we can passively cooperate with it. Now, because of the nature of evolution, we have this delicious instinctual fight or flight response that is useful for keeping us alive. When it's used intermittently, it can be a wonderful thing. When it's used constantly, it can make us miserable. Due to the nature of evolution, as babies, we're constantly in fight and flight. As we mature, we begin to access the ability to love and empathize and let go. Most cultures inhibit that process. Most cultures get us so anxious and aggressive that we try to outthink our own autonomic nervous system and force it to notice and force it to let go. But that doesn't work well. And so if we are fortunate, we'll come across someone to remind us to step out of our own way and simply let our sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system notice and relax in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. And so then we might ask, what do we do then with the dynamic energy of our own controlling tendencies? Like a strong man eager to run a race, it wants to do something. And so what we can do is give our controlling tendencies the opportunity to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this when we feel our body automatically inhaling, and silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease when we feel our body exhaling. We don't choose how long or short or slow or deep to breathe. All we do is watch, like audience members at the cinema. No matter how much we scream at Darth Vader, he's probably not going to drop his lightsaber. Our job as an audience member is to watch Darth Vader and eat our popcorn and drink our soda and have a grand old time. Similarly, all we got to do is when we notice our body breathing, we, instead of cheering or instead of eating popcorn, we silently and mentally recite this. When we notice ourselves exhaling, instead of washing out the popcorn with our soda, we silently and mentally recite the the one-syllable verb ease. All right, so one last thing. So our brains are always listening to us. And when we say focus or concentrate, we tend to light up our medial prefrontal cortex. When we say notice or watch we tend to light up the middle bit of our spinal cord. So by gently adjusting our vocabulary, it makes our journey easier and more effective. I hope that makes sense. Let's continue. Quick reminder for everyone, please feel free to follow Nate's example. The moment you have a specific question, excuse me, I have some disabilities and sometimes I get a little flustered with just basic coordination. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. Sometimes, something as I'm going about my day, maybe a memory will come up or a confabulation will come up that is very dynamic. And instead of repressing it or indulging it, I'll give myself about 3 or 4 breaths to process it through awareness and release. It doesn't rewrite my past, but it makes it easier for me to surf the memory or the confabulation. Quick reminder, in English, the word focus is an act, it's an active thing, whereas noticing is a passive thing. The difference between yang and yin is can be found in our own central nervous system. Yang keeps us anxious and aggressive. Yin keeps us content and compassionate. Choose yin. The Shaolin of yore had a rule of thumb. Defend others. Do not defend yourself. That is an elaboration of something taught by Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching. There's a time to be passive. There's a time to defend others. When we defend others, we must not do so out of rage or terror, but clinically, like a surgeon excising a tumor. You wouldn't want your surgeon to be losing his temper. while you're on this, while you're going through a surgical process. You want them to be cold and calculating and efficient. Similarly, through making mindfulness and meditation the tent post, the tent pillar of our lives, we are able to move from contentment and compassion even in the midst of tumult. Here's an example. I live in the United States, which has gone from walking towards fascism to sprinting towards fascism. And so-called ICE agents are assaulting and accosting men, women, and children, as well as the elderly and the infirm. And so it is conceivable for a man or woman of peace to use themselves as a human shield to buy time for the infirm or the elderly or for children to run away and hide from the men of violence. That is how we reconcile protecting others with peace. I'm glad it's working for you. As we witness the rise of fascism around the globe, and we witness the populace around the globe resisting it, allow me to remind you of something that a very wise person explained. The murder of a fascist in power does not guarantee the defeat of fascism as an entity. Anthropologists have noticed that chimpanzees and bonobos share a common ancestor, and yet the chimpanzees are statistically much more violent than the bonobos. Why is that? Because chimpanzees, all things being equal, chimpanzees evolved in a circumstance of peril, whereas the bonobos evolved in a circumstance of peace and abundance. When we have economic systems predicated on ruthless competition, that is going to trigger our anxiety and aggression, which lead to fascism. When we have economic systems that are based on cooperation, that is going to foster contentment and compassion and creativity. So the real object of our revolt is not the people who are the product of destructive systems, but the systems themselves. Garden hose is not a source of water, it's a conduit of water. People are not a source of kindness or cruelty, they are a conduit of it. They are the conduit of that which their system is producing. There is a wonderful monologue delivered in the first season of the Star Wars television show Andor. And I'm going to paraphrase it badly. I spill myself to create a sunrise I might never see. Or to put it another way, the best time to plant a shade tree is 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a shade tree is right now. Although we might not live long enough to enjoy the fruit or the shade of that tree, those who come after us could. And so we take wise, kind, compassionate actions to create a better future for all beings everywhere. Mindfulness and meditation can give us the centered spontaneity and the love to make that happen. In the Tao Te Ching, we read that there will always be people who will find compassionate language to justify all manner of cruelty. To paraphrase Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, you can fool some of the people some of the time, and you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. You might be able to convince yourself or a select number of fools of your words, but you can't convince everybody. So just do the kind and wise thing. the most efficient way for us to begin keeping track of our second collection of 144 inhalations is for us to rest the second knuckle of our right index finger, palm the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.